Welcome back, folks, to the Mail Right Show. This is episode 222. We got a great special guest. I think it's going to be a fascinating conversation. And also, I've got my great co-host, Robert, with me. Our guest is Kaylee McMahon. We're going to be
Kaylee
discussing...
McMahon.
Kaylee McMahon, thank you very much.
McMahon. It's okay, John.
I always butcher my guest surnames. It's nothing personal, Kaylee. I'm sure we can have a fascinating discussion. We already had a pretty interesting pre-discussion. So, Kaylee, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Sure. My name's Kaylee McMahon. I live in Dallas, Texas. I came from a background of doing a little bit of everything: IT, babysitting, dental sales and equipment and building practices, and got into real estate basically by accident. And now I'm a real estate investor and invest her or helping females to be able to change their mindset and be able to use, like I did, real estate as a vehicle to have a healthy, thriving life is really where I'm at right now, or that's what I'm pursuing every day.
That's great. And I've got my great co-host, Robert. Robert, would you like to introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Yep. My name is Robert Newman. I'm a inbound marketing specialist that has been specializing in residential real estate, SEO, and other forms of inbound marketing for, 12, 13 years now.
Yeah, time goes fast.
Yeah.
So, Kaylee, I thought I would start off with this question. You know, we have a lot of female agents that listen to this podcast, luckily more every month. So I thought your perspective, you know, a lot of them are looking to invest in property, i.e. themselves or for clients. So you were acting as a normal agent and you got into investment. Got any insights how a female agent for either a client or for themselves can take those first steps into the world of property investment?
Yeah, so I used to think that you had to start small and go big, and everybody really, I think, starts thinking that at some point in time. So, you know, you'll think, okay, like me, I had to get a license, and then once I had a license, then I could sell some properties, and then I could have some exposure to dilapidated properties, purchase one with some commissions that I made, and then either house hack, meaning live in a portion of the duplex, for example, and have them pay the mortgage, or, you know, I can flip, you know, a single family, one small house and turn it into a long-term hold, or when you're doing minor rehab or a major rehab, and then, you know, flipping it and selling it. And then I already knew, though, at that point in time, that what I really wanted to do was go large scale. I knew that if I was going to get into, say, flipping a house, that I was going to want to do 10 a month, 20 a month, 30 a month, whatever it was. And so what ended up happening is I learned the concept of multifamily investing. And so that's essentially what I wanted to do, but just more economies of scale. And it's in one, like you have 50 houses under one roof or whatever, for example. So, you know, one plumbing system, one roof, one foundation sometimes, and et cetera. So I already knew where I wanted to be. And now looking back, there's a lot of mindset that was there that I didn't realize that I probably could have done this from the jump, from day one. But a lot of people do start off as an agent to become an investor. Now, one thing to keep in mind there versus getting an education in investing by just literally just go find some other investors that are doing well, doing a lot of whatever it is you want to do, and partner with them. And basically you have some value set that you can help them with, like your boots on the ground. You help, you know, be the general contractor on a job site. They'll teach you how to do it, but then let you actually do the work. And so you earn your stripes, if you will, and earn your split of the sale commission, or not commission, but the proceeds of the sale or whatnot, instead of having to, you know, try real estate and then being a residential agent and then having a license. Because the reason why, in every state is different, everything is totally different, but is whenever you have a license, first of all, it's expensive. Second of all, you are a fiduciary, so you carry a lot of responsibility when it comes to material deficits. When there's like something that if you hear anything, you have the duty to tell your clients. You have to be prudent. You have to be honest. You owe your client certain duties, and that's when you're representing somebody. So if you're going in on a deal not representing somebody, don't necessarily need to do any of that stuff. It's you buying the house, or you and your partner or whatever, and whatever risks associated, it's your job as business owners to do your due diligence on the property and then essentially take your own risk at whatever you want to do. So then though, on the back end, say if you're going to sell a house and that does go to another consumer at the end there, you know, as a good person and as a good business owner, it is your job to like tell them all the material facts and disclose everything. So that's one good thing about a real estate agent education is, you know, everything is all about legal stuff. I mean, they don't even teach you in school like how to, you know, do a comp on a house. They don't even teach you like what different industries are out there or how to wrap notes or anything. They don't teach you anything about investing or really even how to run a comparative market analysis on a house. They don't teach you anything. So it's liability, and legal stuff. So at least it teaches you how to, as a individual, how to make sure that you're always disclosing everything. Like if the house was a burnout before, if there was a death, if there was like whatnot, you really do, just to do good business, you need to do those things. You need to tell your end buyer what happened. Though it doesn't fall back on you, you just tell them, you know? So it's a lot of liability and expense and time to continue doing your continuing education and whatnot, to have a license and be an investor at the same time. However, right now I have my brokerage license currently, and the reason why I keep it is because I don't need it at all for what I do, but I have a brokerage running kind of on the side, and there's people that are agents and they do their thing. So that helps have a business that's got cash flow running through it, so I can leverage that to make loans for other things that I need, or loans for another, you know, business line of credit or whatever. So it's helpful for those things. But also on the buyer side, for my commercial transactions, there's not a buyer's agent when we go into these deals. There's a seller's agent. They have the property, they have the seller, and then we have our attorneys write all the documents up. We don't need a buyer's agent, so we just go buy it. But what I can do is, because I have a license, I can legally add in, and there's a strategy I use to it. My friends do this, but I can legally add in like a point or whatever to the buyer side. You know, it'll come off what we're paying or add to what we're paying or whatever, but you just build it into the deal. And then we're able to essentially have a chunk of cash that comes from closing these deals that is getting paid out on the Alta statement, not the HUD statement. So your closing statement, the Alta statement's what it's called. And there's a line item that says paying whatever brokerage. So that goes into our trust account or our brokerage account. And then I use that for marketing, advertising, leads, people, all this stuff to run that business instead of paying it out of my own pocket. So kind of helping each other run each other, if you will. So there's a lot there, I guess, to answer.
Yeah. Over to you, Robert.
Earlier in the your comments, you mentioned, you kind of casually mentioned that you'd go out if you were doing it all over again today, you'd start at a much higher or more elevated investment mindset, is the way you were describing it, is the way I understood it as you were describing it. But then you also said, hey, I would just go out and find myself some partners right out the jump. So let's just say that I am a real estate investor and I have no idea how to find real estate investment partners. How would I do that?
Ask around. I mean, there are, and you have to be very obviously careful with your time, because there's a lot of, I'd say, I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a large percentage of people when you go to your local RIA, so Real Estate Investment Association, that's a good place to start. It's usually a big group of people that do a random bunch of different investment vehicles. But there was one here in Dallas called Propelio, which was a free investor education network. And so that was kind of my exposure. But if you're in a room of people, you need to go up to that person and ask them, okay, what do you do? Okay, cool. How much of that have you done in the last 30 days? Like, for example, I'm a wholesaler. I do assignments. Whatever it is that you do, I buy notes as an investor. And then because I don't know what percentage, but it's a large percentage are just full of crap, you know? So you want to find the people that are not. So finding the ones that are not, again, it's easy if you not easy, but it's easier if you just kind of ask around, like, hey, who in this room has done a high volume of X, you know, and then go introduce yourself to that person and do your due diligence on that person and kind of figure out literally how much have they done. And for me, a comfort level is can we go look at something that's in progress? Can we go, can you show me what you've closed and sold? What agents do you work with to list it, and things like that. And they'll have information to share with you. If they're like sputtling over their words and they can't talk about what they've done, like there's your sign. But really asking around for track record, and especially people that have done business with them. So if someone goes, okay, Bob and Jane and Terry do a high volume of flips or whatever, and then you go ask out there in the universe of investor people, like who all has worked with these people, like not who's your buddy and who's doing like nice little recommendations, who is actually giving this person money and seeing it on the back end whenever it's done being sold. So we call it going full cycle on a deal. So that's the key thing. Even in multifamily, it doesn't matter, but that's how I have found partners, because I need to find people that have done more than I have and add value to their life in some way, and then everybody wins. Then obviously we split profits. I help them get more done than they could on their own. Whatever it is that you bring to the table, that's how everybody wins.
Got you, I think. So I just took your advice and Googled real estate investment groups where I'm at in Los Angeles. And I came up with a meetup group, or Los Angeles Real Estate Investment Club, that has 4,200 members. I presume, Kaylee, that you're saying that as a first step, a person could go to a meeting like this. This is a little outside of our bailiwick. We are mostly a real estate marketing podcast we talk to, but we do occasionally have more experienced brokers and other real estate people come on the show. And so John and I decided that we're taking the thought that what if these agents want to somehow break out of just being an agent and do some kind of investment themselves. We don't do that much of that kind of conversation. So I'm going to keep it real basic, because I don't know. I'm not an investor. I focus on residential real estate sales myself. So so the meetup would be step number one. And then if I heard you correctly, or the way that I interpreted your other comments was, one, if you do meet somebody at a meetup or some other place that you're trying to network and you're talking about a deal with somebody, you're then going to say, who have you done business with? What are the projects you have in process? Can I see any of these projects? Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, if you're wanting to go stepwise by kind of like the next thing to do at that meetup, you would go ask around to people and say, you kind of need to get an idea of what you want to do as far as being an investor.
Multifamily. So let's stick with the example.
Look at YouTube and go, wholesaling, note flipping houses, multifamily. You'd go to that meetup and ask around and be like, who does a ton of multifamily here? And people would usually point you to one person or two people or something in the room. And then you go talk to them. And then at that point, then it's your job to kind of do your due diligence on that person, like you said, and ask them if, you're interested in it. You kind of also, as a person, need to have a story, because part of investing there, you have to be different, and so for someone to want to work with you, you've got to add value to their life. And some of that value sometimes is you having something that either happened in your life or something that's important to you, that real estate is going to be the financial vehicle to get you to the end of that game. And so like for me, my original mentor, he loves women, not in a weird way, but he just has a ton of sisters, and all of his property managers and accountants and everybody that works for him are women. And he's like, they're more honest, they work harder, they're not like all these things that he just liked about women. And I go, exactly, that's what I'm doing to the commercial real estate world, as my why is to have more women in commercial real estate. So so that worked for him, and then I found value to add to him later. But basically you're trying to vet somebody, but also they're not going to want to talk to you if you're just sitting there being, just trying to ask them a million questions and be like, okay, you're super annoying. You kind of have to have some personal connection. And then once, you guys can kind of add value to each other, then it would be like, okay, I'd be interested in getting involved with you. How many of these apartments have you bought in the last, year? And how many have gone full cycle that you bought and then flipped, or whatever they do with it, sometimes long-term hold, but then you've sold it at the back end, and they answer you, and you could ask them who their partners on those deals were and talk to those partners, ask how it went. So yeah, that's a good starting point. So, you have a solid foundation moving forward, in that you're not listening to someone that's making it up. You're listening to someone that's done it.
Roger that. So
I think
go ahead.
it's time for us to go for our break. Actually, we'll be coming back. We'll be discussing this fascinating world of investing with Kaylee when we come back.
For once, I had tracked it a little better than you. We had 3 minutes to go. We started at 12:11.
We're coming back. We've had a fascinating discussion already about the world of investing, which I know very little about. So I thought Kaylee was the right lady to come on the show, because I'm sure a lot of you agents get requests and are interested in this side. So it's always best to talk to the expert. So Kaylee, how long was you an actual agent broker before you did your first investment deal? And can you remember what that deal was?
Yeah, it was a single family flip, and it was about a year.
It was about a year. So not that long. No. So can you give some detail how that first deal came about?
It was actually, I knew I wanted to do a flip house, or I thought I did. I liked the concept. I wanted to do flips, and I liked investors, and a lot of agents are like, it's funny because at least in Texas, there's a lot of ladies here and guys here that think that like investing is like illegal and that people are crooks and investors are bad. And I was like, you're out of your mind. Show me some kind of spreadsheet that proves this, because this is all hearsay at this moment. So I went ahead and figured it out myself, exactly how I said earlier. Found a local group and kind of got involved and found some people that were doing high volumes of something. And then I forget how I did this. Oh, I had an ad out there that was for a house in Prosper, and this person was asking about the house, but then they also asked, do you have anything with a lot? And, I was like, well, that's an interesting request. Okay, well, I'll look for that. And then I kind of started picking around Jason a little bit more and asking like, well, what's the lot for? And he goes, well, because you can subdivide and sell it off, or I can subdivide, build new, because I'm an investor. So I have people funding my projects, and we basically build and then we split the profits, sell it and whatnot. And so we ended up having a close relationship, and I sold him a whole bunch of lots, and then he built new, and then he let us, list it on the back end for him. And even now tonight, I'm going to be at the Dallas Real Estate Investor Meetup that's there pitching my commercial deals now, because I've grown quite a bit. But, he helped me kind of see a different world. So that first deal came about because I was actively helping investors, like 3 of them. One was more of the funding person. All he wanted to do was be passive and like give other people money and let them do stuff with it. One of them was a local person in that community, who bought and sold everything in that town, gas stations, land. I mean, he had no specific thing that he did. And then my investor, Jason, who wanted a certain price point and wanted a certain return at the back end. And so to do that, he knew how to say, okay, so we need to buy at this price and buy it this way so that we can get that return that I want. And so I was able to find it in a suburb of Dallas. And even now, he's just done a ton of work there, and his stuff sells in 4 days. He does such a good job. So I was actually lucky that happened. But the local guy, I ended up buying a house from him. And as an agent, I had some money. I wasn't like a baller agent doing 10, 20 transactions a month. I'm just kind of laid back. I was like, okay, let's sell like 2-3 houses a month. I don't care. And if they go in the next month and don't close, I still don't care, because I just never wanted to be that agent that likes to pressure people or anything. So, and having, Jason doing these lot transactions or undeveloped land transactions also helped, with learning, and then also being more comfortable financially. So, there's a house that the local guy owned, and he's like, you want it? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've never done this before. I have no idea. So I turned to Jason, and he was already developing in that community, very slowly starting to do the, pouring the slab foundations and starting on the sticks and the framing and whatnot of the houses. And this was a pre-existing house, and it was a burnout. So I was like, well, no one else is going to touch it, but it's $19,000. Like, I'm going to buy it. So I needed something that was super cheap. And again, now knowing how to run numbers on multiple different types of investments, now looking back, there's definitely a better way to do this. And if anyone wants to contact me out there who is thinking about buying a flip and wants to know how to schedule your work with your contractors, how to basically, never do a cost plus contract. They will screw you over completely. I had to go through that. It was like literally the hardest thing I ever did. It was so annoying. I took this big loan out from the bank, had my cash to close it, and then was working on this thing. And these people just I wouldn't let them make me cry, but I was borderline weekly because it was just constantly I'm very empathetic. And that's probably one of my weaknesses, if you will, when it comes to working with crackhead contractors that need their fix.
I love it. Yeah. Crackhead.
I'm not kidding. They needed their fix for the week. So every Friday they're like, "Where's my check?" I'm like, "I don't know. The plumbing doesn't work. Where's your check? Finish it." So the point is that I could show somebody different ways to do an estimate on what type of systems are going to. So you always, when you're looking at something, you walk with an experienced contractor that does this with other investors all the time. They'll walk through the house with you, and you don't spend very much time. This is something I learned from my girlfriend who's 21, and she does probably 10 houses a month. You don't spend very much time in a room. You kind of go, all right, what are you thinking here? What are you thinking there? What are you thinking there? And they're going to get you a quote on a bathroom, a quote on a kitchen. And it's going to be a chunk of different it's going to be one area, but several different line items. We need to replace the PVC. It'll be this much. We need labor costs. It'll be this much. We need 10 drawer pulls. It'll be this much. You literally want everything itemized out in there, exactly what they say that they're going to do. And you'll want 3 bids because you'll get a super low one, you'll get a super high one, and something just right in the middle. And then I could walk somebody through this process now, that just sending them several different spreadsheets, just walk through, fill this out. Then you know exactly what you need to put into a contract. And that's the good thing about being an agent, I guess. Well, not really, because you're not an attorney. So you actually need to be doing these deals not as an agent. You have to do it as an individual, because when you're writing up these contracts as an agent, you can't legally do that because you're not an attorney, and it's not a promulgated form. So anyway, but there's ways to avoid a lot of headaches and be able to say, if you're not done by this date, then you're going to be charged $100 per day, or meaning subtracted from your ending bill that we projected. And if you finish early in the same way, I'll pay you more. And anyway, just different ways to get it done on time, get it done and make sure it's profitable, because your contractor is the biggest reason why your end sell price is going to fail, based on the quality of work, where you have to, lower the price to, et cetera. So you gotta do that right. But that was one of the hardest things I had ever done. Ever. Very painful. And so for me, I quickly learned that I don't like to be micromanaged, and I don't like to micromanage grown men. So this is not for me. This is not what I enjoy. And whenever people tell me about having to deal with contractors that are jerking them around, because in Texas right now, there's a ton of work. There's a lot of development. There's a lot of flipping. There's a lot of, because we have 500 people a day coming here. So, there's a lot still going on, even though it's been a bull run market for a long time, meaning that it's a top of the market. The market has just gone up and up and up and up. So, so they have a lot of work in a time where it is low, and there's low construction and low flipping, and there's not a lot of demand. Then they're desperate for work, and they'll listen to you more. But right now, they're like, "Oh, half finish this job, half finish that job, get paid half here, half there." Anyway, so for me, I didn't like to micromanage, so I knew it wasn't a good fit for me as far as flipping houses go. And they're a lot harder than you think.
So I'm going to put it over to Robert, actually. Over to you, Robert.
About the contract? No. You started this thread. You got to continue it.
Oh, you're right. So I'm not surprised what you've just said, actually, because dealing with contractors, I have actually invested some money in property about 6 years ago with a experienced individual, and I did rather well out of it, but they had quite a messy divorce, so our partnership had to stop, basically. But I know dealing with contractors, but you normally deal with that by having a small team of contractors that you trust and have some relationship with, because fundamentally, I think what the thread of everything we've discussed so far, Kaylee, is it's about relationships, isn't it? Would you agree with that?
Yep.
So you decided that flipping wasn't your cup of tea because of this experience with your contractor friends. So what was the next step actually? Flipping wasn't going to be it. So what did you decide was going to be your cup of tea?
Well, so for example, if you look at an agent that hops around from brokerage to brokerage to brokerage, it's the exact same thing. It's somebody that goes, okay, I tried it over here and it didn't work. I'm just going to move on to something else. And that's not what happened here at all. You have to dig back in and usually, like, say, if you're in the situation I just mentioned, you go have a conversation with the team, the broker, whatever it was that didn't quite work out. So at least you learn a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more proactive. So when I feel it kind of going, then I go talk to them right then, figure out where we can figure out and meet in the middle. But it's the same thing on this contractor thing. I end up having my, 21, almost a decade younger than me girlfriend who flips way more houses than me. I had her come out there. I was like, all right, Claire, what is going on? Why is this being held up so much? Why are there 3 guys on my job site where there's only 1 or maybe 2 working? Why am I being charged for this? Do I need to put a camera in? Like all this stuff. And anyway, she just was like, basically, we're going to have to redo this to where I'm the big boss biatch and I'm coming in and you are someone that works for my company and I'm going to be keeping an eye on what you're bringing back to me as far as reports go. She's like, they don't know who has the note at the bank. They don't know any of that stuff. It's none of their business. Don't ever tell them that stuff. But so she was just the one that was just essentially saying what I was telling her, saying it out loud in an experienced way. So she helped. Long story short, what was happening, and this happens constantly, tons of people I know that get started, unless you're literally doing a deal with someone else who does a bunch of them, and then they can essentially, your profits won't be as great. And so again, this was at a time where I was like, oh, I just want all the money. It would have been beneficial to be like, you know what, half is great just so I can do it right the first time and get in and out of it in a decent time and whatnot. But this happens to people constantly. And then as a woman, and as a cute girl or woman, they're like, oh, how, and you're young and you're new and they know it and you're a girl and they're like, you're dumb. Like there's all kinds of things that when they're trying to explain, like the way that they're putting the caulking on a PVC pipe, like a corner piece, or they're trying to explain something. Again, this is not a level of expertise that I had starting off. There's a lot that I learned, but they know that. And so they want to take advantage. And so I just really didn't like that mindset. I think professionals shouldn't do that. But and this was even a personal referral from somebody else who had used this person before. So, I was just like, how many more of these? And I started to realize, getting involved in this investing group, that there were a ton of contractors out there, and so a ton of house flippers, a ton of people in that single family space. And so what happened was there's a way right now to kind of get away with stuff like that, because people are too embarrassed to put out there like, I failed because I didn't know what I was doing, which, I mean, the biggest issue on my house was the foundation was a bad choice of mine. Everything else worked out okay. But, that was a major issue. And that became a major issue in the end, something I had to pay for and rectify after the fact out of the sales price. Again, lesson learned. But, being able to partner with somebody, I think, helps a lot with being able to deal with that inexperience level and be able to learn and not get screwed over by contractors, and then essentially having less profits than you even would have had if you partnered in the first place. But then going into multifamily, that was the question, right? Like kind of how did I go from?
Yeah, I do. I think we're going to end the podcast part of the show. Hopefully Kaylee's going to agree to stay on for another 10 minutes. And which you'll be able to see as our bonus content on the Mel Wright YouTube channel and also the Mel Wright website, the whole interview plus the bonus. And we're going to be talking about attitude and what the right attitude, why it's so important. It's something that Kaylee's really very passionate about. So Kaylee, how can people find out more about yourself, your methods, and what you're up to in general?
I'm very out there on social media. So if you want to go to my website, which is www.theapartmentqueen.com, we've got an active blog. I blog every week, and usually it's not just what I'm doing at work, because there's obviously a human side to all this. So that has a little bit of, especially if I'm frustrated with something, that's kind of a point in time where I decide to talk about things, because I want lessons that I had to learn. I want people out there to learn those lessons before having to maybe make those mistakes. So on my website, and then I'm also same name on Instagram, The Apartment Queen. And then you could email me if you have specific questions, but on those places, there's content on there that you can watch and learn from.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Robert, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
As always, they can go to inboundrem.com. I'm in the middle of my end of the year content updates. They've started to get posted. You'll see a new best of the real estate marketing website providers for 2020 on my site early here in 2019. And that's the best way to find me.
Oh, that's great. So we're going to finish the podcast part of the show, folks. If you're really generous, tell people in your office that they should be listening to me and Robert. I think in 2019 we've had some amazing guests, had some amazing conversations like Kaylee, and they will learn a lot. And if you're really generous and you thought you've got some great tips and insights, give us a review on iTunes. We'll be back next week with either a great guest or an internal discussion between me and Robert. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye. So on to bonus content. I was intrigued by our pre-show discussion. You were so frank about, addictions and attitude, how attitude was really so important. Would you like to give some more insight into that, Kaylee?
Sure. Yeah. Right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, like I was saying, that mindset and, even for me getting started in the whole regenesis of who I was about 2 years ago, the first things that I read or paid attention to, because I think people are in your life for a reason and they try to like drop hints here, drop hints there, but if you're not there, you're not going to listen. So all they can do is kind of try to gently nudge you. And so someone gave me The Secret, the book. And for me, the type of learner I am, it was more effective actually going on Amazon, I think, and they have The Secret, like a little movie, but it's the same concepts. And it's basically talking about the energy that you put out into the universe, and basically the energy that you're going to put out there is what you're going to get back. So you're essentially manifesting your life, your future, whoever's going to come into it, anything that you're going to do by what you put out there. So if you're putting out there, woe is me, negativity, I'm upset about everything that happens to me, instead of taking responsibility for it and realizing that, I'm allowing people to treat me that way. I'm allowing myself to get in these situations. I am doing drugs myself. I am whatever. This is my choice. I am an adult. This is my choice. And so whatever you're putting out there, that's all you're going to continue to get back. But if you change your mindset and you change to where, okay, I'm only going to put out good. I'm only going to be generous. I'm only going to be kind. I'm only going to be positive. That, for me, that was a big thing. I grew up with a very negative family that just complained about everything and everybody else sucked. And, and I'm like, okay. And that's all you know. But then once I changed everything, the people in my life do not suck. They're amazing. I mean, like I am actually in disbelief on a daily basis of how helpful and genuine. I mean, I've got people that are, not blood family, but they're in my life now. I could literally call them from jail and be like, hey, I need out. And they're like, I'm down, I'm there. You know what I mean? My own family won't let me borrow their cars, or, when I visit, they're like, whose house are you going to stay at? We don't want you here. So it's a lot about mindset. And your question was about not mindset specifically. It was about what?
Well, it was about attitude and how that affects the business outcomes, because you were quite passionate on our pre-show discussion. That was a very important, passionate part of your message, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, if you have a client that doesn't want to buy from you, if you have a boyfriend or like a potential boyfriend that doesn't want to date you, if you have whatever, I mean, getting mad about it and acting like you're owed something that you think that you should have in your head, and getting, wallowing in sorrow about it and whatever, like that's only going to continue to happen. So the attitude, if you will, is putting out there what attitude you want to get back. So if you want people to not pressure you, if you want people just to love you for who you are, if you want whatever, like you have to give that to the universe, if you will.
God,
so at first I thought that was real hokey, but I mean, it works.
No,
it really works.
I'll follow it. Over to you, Robert.
Well, this is too broad of a topic I mean, so it sounds to me like you have discovered a mission. And I've always known all of these things that you're talking about, like through The Secret or something, but many years ago, it was all introduced to me as neuro-linguistic programming, which is the same concept, but more scientific and a little more with like a deeper research thread. And it's been around since the 70s, and there are scientists and doctors that have been studying it. But basically, it comes down to a fairly simple principle, which is what you're talking about, which is having not only the mind, an idea followed by belief, and then affirmed many times until it seeps into your subconscious brain, and the greater part of our mind and our instinct leads us down the path that we actually want to go, as opposed to the one that we don't want to go. So there's a path that you want to go on, Kaylee, and it's obvious that you had some kind of crucible in your life that helped you discover what that path is. If I'm understanding it correctly, it seems to be that you want to help other women, and you're using real estate investment as a vehicle. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. What does the word crucible mean? I don't want to like say that I think I know it. I'm wrong.
It's like a crucible is like putting yourself through a major change. It's like, it's usually used like the fire of change would be an apt analogy, I think.
Okay, so I knew I was gonna like say that it's the wrong thing. It's not the same thing I was thinking it was. Yeah, but I mean, okay, so yes, there is a drive and a fire and a purpose and a grit that I have beyond what I think the average person does. And that drive, I actually have a radio show called The Drive, and that's what we talk about, is kind of what drives you in your business. There's some core beliefs or some core things that, you know, I thought crucible, I thought you were going to say like it meant the cross that you carried or something rough that you went through. I mean, a lot of the strongest leaders that I know, I mean, they have been through some major shit. I mean, pardon my French. They've been through some major stuff in their life that really taught them a lesson. And so for me, yeah, I went through some major stuff, you know, growing up, I was sexually abused my entire life. And so that was something I didn't even realize was happening, or didn't realize I had to deal with it, or didn't realize that it was affecting me as deeply and as far out into my adulthood as it was. And so it took until other people kind of were like, you know, why are you controlling yourself working out twice a day? Why are you not eating anything? Why are you, for me, my strength or something that I could always comfortably lean on was education. So I love to read. I read 3-4 books a month or so. I'm always constantly at conferences, learning from people. I mean, I'm a sponge. I really love it. But for me, that's my comfort zone, because people to me are very uncomfortable. There's a lot of social interactions where people are, you know, crazy, loud, mean, whatever, like they can just fly off the handle at any second. That's not something you can predict. It's not something you can learn. It's just, you know, it's people. And then so, and emotionally too, that's another thing that's very variable, and you can't learn it. You know, it changes day to day. And so being comfortable with these things was something I just was not. So I really had to do a lot of work on myself. And it was because of other people, showing me these things and opening my mind up to realize that, you know, because you, like you said, you only know what you know, you only know one reality. So someone from the outside looking in can help, you know, open your mindset up to realize, for me, it was someone I dated that was like, why are you so closed to me? I mean, I respect you. I take you on trips. I treat you really well. I help you with a lot of things. Like, why are you, there like this coldness or this disconnect that I didn't understand or see it. And after finally pulling all of the pain out and all the things that I never dealt with and all the things that I needed to deal with, that person also was trying to push me into starting my own business, you know, saying, why don't you just start like a dog babysitting place, you know? And I'm like, me? Start a bit like, me? Are you kidding me? Like, I can't do that. Like, there's no way. But it was, again, because I didn't believe in myself, and I had this like shallow mindset of, you know, what I saw as my family. Like they work for other people, or they work for Dairy Queen or whatever growing up. And so I'm like, that's what I'm going to end up doing, is just working at someone else's office, doing something else, you know, for somebody else's business. And that person with their thoughts and being able to see that in me as a true leader, that's what true leaders do, is they find other people's qualities and pull that out in them. That's something that literally started changing my entire life. You know, my mindset expanded to realize that these people are negative. They're using me. They're not promoting me to do better. And so I need to go to counseling, which I used to think was hokey and stupid and for messed up people. But for me, it really is just a good sounding board to continue to go to as things change every week, you know, to bring up things that I don't really know how to deal with. I don't know how to handle them, and having extra ideas on how to handle things in a mature way that's going to take care of me is really, really helpful. And so I would love it. Like, my juice is when I show other people something that helped me succeed, and maybe it took me longer than it could take if I knew what I didn't know then, like back then, and to see that person take that information and just skyrocket with it. That's really my juice. So
okay, so I'm
yeah.
going to pause you for a second there, Kaylee. It's fortunate that I've spent a lot of time in Texas and dealing with Texans because juice, guys, is join us in creating enthusiasm, for those that don't know the analogy. And then crucible is a biblical reference, just so that you know, which is also something that I use when I'm speaking to people out in your part of the world. Not that I'm saying, I'm not making any inference. I just find that my mind automatically goes there. So John,
I think it's time to wrap up this fascinating interview. And Kaylee, I'm actually going to give you a great compliment. Actually, we've done a lot of interviewing, but I actually really appreciate your honesty. You've been, I get the impression is what you see is what you get with you,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate your honesty in this interview. And I think I wanted to get a female guest on that was an agent broker, but also invested in property successfully, because there's not that many of them. And
Right.
I think you're a great role model. So we're going to end this part of our discussion with Kaylee, and we'll be back next week, folks.
Thanks for coming on, Kaylee. We really appreciate it.
Bye,
Thank y'all for having me.
folks.